Last class we have discussed string and string and string buffer. Okay, string and string buffer is discussed in the last class. Okay, so today class we are going to discuss about string builder. String builder. So why do we need a string builder class introduced in Java? So already we have string buffer is there. Okay. Why do we need a string builder class? So whatever the behavior string is immutable class. String buffer and string builder both are mutable classes. Then what is the difference between these two is string buffer class is thread safe. String buffer is thread safe, and string builder is not thread safe. Okay, that is the main difference. The rest of at a time, if you want to execute of the same code multiple times, okay, then in that case string build buffer is not suitable. String builder is suitable. If you want to allow only one thread at a time, then in that case string buffer is suitable. If you want immutable behavior as well as thread safe both, then in that case we can use as the string buffer. We can use string builder is it is not thread safe. Any number of threads can access same time. Now let's go to all the methods. Let's go to the document and repeat it. The methods whatever there in the string buffer exactly same as all methods will be there in string builder as well. There is no other change except small changes. Okay. Now, string builder class. Every method in string buffer is synchronized. Means thread safe. Every method in string buffer class is synchronized method. So at a time, it will allow only one thread to access them. Hence, only one thread is allowed to. Only one thread is allowed to operate on string buffer object. If you are creating string buffer object and then if you are calling of one thread is using of string buffer object means so on calling of some method, then until releasing the thread, then only other thread can access of string buffer object, then call of any method. Okay, so at a time which may create at that time it will create of some performance problem. Okay, if at a time thousand threads are trying to access of some method, okay, then in that case a string buffer is not suitable. So to handle that such type of requirements, okay, then string builder came introduced in by the Java people in 1.5 version. Okay, so that is the difference. That is one thing. So the exactly the string builder and builder is exactly same as string buffer except the following differences. Every method in string buffer is synchronized method. Every method in present in string builder is not synchronized. Okay, and at a time whatever that we are discussing here, so I'm giving is a points here. Okay, so at a time only one thread is allowed. At a time only one thread will be allowed for accessing of a string buffer object. Okay, hence it is a give thread safety. String buffer will give thread safety. Okay, but in case of string builder, okay, so at a time multiple threads are allowed to operating on string builder object. So thread safety is not there for string builder object. So due to that we can call of any number of thread at a time. So the performance is also very good in case of string builder, but in case of string buffer, so it is not allowing multiple thread at a time, right? So the performance is bit low compared to string builder. So these are the differences for string builder and string buffer. Okay, now next, so we have three things: string buffer, string builder. So we'll see one more some difference between all these three. Not so except about differences, everything is same except synchronized and not synchronized. The rest of everything is same in between string buffer and string builder, guys, including methods and constructors also. All are same. Okay, no change. Now, now the difference between string buffer, string builder. Now, what is the difference between all these three? Now, let's say if the content is fixed, if the content is fixed, string is immutable, right? So if you're trying to modify the content also, it is going to create a new object. So my requirement is content is fixed, it is not changing frequently. Then in that case, I always prefer going to use of string object instead of string buffer and a string builder. If the content is fixed, I'll prefer of string object. Okay. And second one, so if the content is not fixed, okay, string builder and string buffer both are string buffer and string builder both are, it is a immutable objects. Sorry, mutable objects. So the content is not fixed and keep on changing the content. But thread safety is required. Thread safety is required. I don't want all of multiple threads to execute of same object by multiple threads. Then in that case, I will choose of string buffer object rather string builder. Okay. So if my requirement is I don't want of thread safety, I want my content is changing, keep on changing, and I want to allow of multiple threads to access that object, then in that case, I can go for string builder object. String builder object. See, if content is not fixed, keep on changing, but thread safety is also not required. Thread safety is not required. Then we should go for string builder concept. Okay, this is what the difference between main for string buffer, and string builder. Okay. Now, next part is method chaining. Next part is method chaining. What is mean by method chaining? Method chaining means if you are trying to call off now normally string buffer, string builder all are having the it will return of same types. Okay, a string if you are calling of any method on string, so the return is also it is of same type. Okay, now let's go to any one class. Okay, so if I'm calling off if I am calling off substring, just assume substring. Okay, what is the return type? Return type is also a string. Okay, it is of same type. If I'm calling off some other type, two lowercase, this also will return of same type. Return type is same. If I'm going to call off replace, this also is going to give off string only. So in that case, we it is possible to call off method chaining, method on method. So once after that, we can call multiple methods in a single line. So instead of calling multiple lines of code, so multiple methods we call in a single line. Okay. Now let's see for some example also. Okay. Now go to documentation. What is mean by method chaining? For most of the methods, most of the methods in string builder and string buffer or return types are same types. Okay, to whichever you are using, you can use of same. Okay, so hence after applying a method on object, on result, we can call another method, we can call of another method. So that will calling of return of another method. So this is of object, just assume string object, I'm calling of on two lowercase, on top of that again I'll call of two uppercase, on top of that I can call of replace. So like that we can call of method after another. So that method after calling another method is calling as method chaining. Okay. Now, so now let's see. So from left to right it will call, guys, not from right to left. It will call from left to first object dot m1 it will call. So once it is written, the return type is string. On that object it will call of again m2. Once it will return of string object, on that newly created object it will call of m3. So like that it will call of method after another. So from left to right. So in the method chaining, so method calls will be executed from left to right, from left to right, not from right to left. Okay. Next we'll take off one example. Let's say we'll take off let's take one class. Okay. string buffer test string buffer test something. Okay. Now if I'm writing of string buffer, okay, sb equal to new string buffer of this one. So sb dot append of p and append of give some string value. Okay, in ibc working in ibc. Okay, next sb dot again I'm calling of again one more append. Okay, app and append of one more. So techno. Okay, so again I am calling. So this separate method I am calling. Okay, so sb dot append of okay, append of solutions abc techno solutions solu solutions. Okay, so it will give the output as. Okay, now next sb dot we will do of some reverse. We will do some reverse order. sb dot reverse. There is a method called reverse method. So on top of this, you will return off some object again. sb dot just leave it for timing what it is going to print. Okay, sb. So what I am doing, ibc techno solutions. Let's me without without this what it is going to print is ibc techno solutions. Ibc techno solutions. If I'm calling reverse method, okay, then it will display in it will give the response in reverse order. Okay, now let me try to do of so sb dot okay, drop substring. We can call off some mm, delete start and end. Okay, delete character starting is 5. Okay, and delete character at 10. Okay, I want to delete of characters between 2 in the reverse form. After reversing, I'm deleting, guys. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From you, it will delete 1, 6, 7, 8, 9. So up to that, it will delete, and then rest of them only it will display. See, it is going to delete off the other things in between. Okay. Now, so we are doing of multiple lines of code. All this is also returning true, right? This is also returning same string buffer object, right? Now, even this method is also returning of a string buffer object, right? So all are giving same type of object as a return type. So in that case, we can call this method like this, whatever that is there, right? So we can write in a single line like so sp sb1. Okay, just assume sb1 sb1 dot. Okay, sb1 dot append of right, this one. Okay, dot append of right techno. Okay, so I'm writing everything in a single line. Okay, dot append of solutions. Okay, dot append of solutions. So dot reverse. Okay, dot delete 5 comma 10. Okay, finish it. So this will return off one string. So at the end, system dot out dot println of then sb1. Now even in this case also, both will be give as same output. Is there any difference in the output, guys? So instead of writing of these many lines of code, I can write in like this also. I can write like this also. So this will calling method on method, calling method after another. So then we'll call it as a method chaining. Method chaining. Now see, for most of the methods, all string buffer, string builder, return type is same type. So we can apply method after another. We can call off method after another method. So that will call it as a method chaining. Method chaining. Let's go and see of some example. See, string buffer object I have created. I created of so IBC Techno Private Limited and delete and then some reverse order I am doing. Okay, then it will give us some output. So instead of writing of these many lines of code, okay, I am writing all methods. These are method chain we can apply for these methods. So I am writing in a single line. I'm writing in single line. So both are giving same output. Okay, so this calling of method after another will call it as a method chaining. Calling a method after another will calling as a method chaining. So is it clear, guys? What is string builder and what is the difference between string builder and string buffer and what is method chaining, guys? Is it clear or you want me to repeat anything or shall we go to the next concept? Okay, let's move to next concept. Okay, let's move to next concept. Next concept is exception handling. Next concept is exception handling. What is exception handling? Okay, let's say for suppose we are writing some program. Okay, whatever the code that we are writing, it is not guaranteed like it will work in all scenarios 100%. There may be some scenarios it will fail. The program may fail, right? So sometimes if the program is some scenarios, all positive scenarios it may work. If any negative scenarios is there, if any negative scenarios is there, in that case it may fail. Okay. So to if any exception is raised while executing, if any, let's say we're writing some 100 lines of code. Okay, just assume we are writing. First, what I'm doing, I'm writing of some program starting. Okay, main method starting, main method. Okay, main method. So, and then ending main method. So in between I'll write off some code. Okay. In between I'll write off int a equal to 10. Just assume some calculations. So int b equal to 20. Okay. Yeah. Int a equal 10, b equal 20. So int c equal to a plus b. Okay. Int c equal to a plus b. That I have stored on system.out.println. System.out.println of addition of two numbers. Two numbers is C. Okay, I have calculated sum of these two numbers and taken to this variable. That variable I am printing. Okay, let's say if I am doing a int C into D equal to B minus A. Okay, it is going to give us a subtraction. System.out.println sub of okay sub of two numbers is it is going to give us some value D. Okay, now let's system.out.println giving differentiation between them. So now if last statement is executed, okay, then only we can say until all the program is executed successfully. Correct or not? Right? All lines of code is executed. See, started main method and last is ending main method. In between also addition of two numbers is 30 and subtraction of two numbers is giving minus 20 minus 10, 10 is coming. Okay, let's say for example, I'm calling of if I'm calling next system dot out dot println of system dot out dot println of a by a divided by 0. What I given here 10 by 0. What is the output it will give? What is the output, guys? What is the output, guys? Infinity, right? Okay, let's see. So, is last statement of the program executed or not? Hmm? So, up to, yes, it is giving divide by 0. It is giving divide by 0. Okay, the exception is coming. So, any positive number, any integral number divide by 0 will cause a divide by 0 exception. Any integral means byte, short, int, long. So, if you are using of any integral number, these four byte, short, int, long by 0, then always that arithmetic exception will throw an exception. Okay, so that means that if at the end if I am giving as 5, okay, just assume 5 is there. So do you think will it give error or will it run successfully? Guys, what is the output of this one now? Will it give any error? So no error, right? Now this time it is not giving of any error. See, everything divide by 0 of divide by 10 by 5 is giving 2, right? Output is coming. So on that of the method is also main method is also completing. So if I am passing here as 0, it is not giving success for, and it is the end of the program is not completing. The execution is not happening. Correct or not? Right? So exception means any abnormal condition. This is one abnormal condition. Correct or not? It is not. It is failing. In between, it is throwing some exception. My code, right? So any exception is an abnormal condition. Any exception will call it as an abnormal term, abnormal condition. So what it will do, which occurs at the time of executing the program. At the time of executing the program, line number this at the time of executing line number 15, it is disturbing the flow. It is disturbing the flow of execution of the program. Correct or not? It is not allowing to continue further due to some exception. Right or not? So that will called as a so normally the we can say the definition is like exception is an abnormal condition. Exception is an abnormal condition which occurs at runtime. Which occurs at runtime and it will disturb the normal flow of the program. Okay, which occurs at runtime and it will disturb the normal flow of the program, and the program will be terminated abrupt normally means program will be terminated intermediately without completing entire program. Abnormally it will terminate in between. Okay, now let's see what is the definition of exception. Okay, how to handle that exception. See, an exception is an abnormal condition or a situation, okay, which occurs during runtime only. During, so at the time of writing the program, it is not giving any error, right? So only at runtime, when I am running the program, at runtime only it is giving error. So during runtime, disturb the normal flow of the program. So this line is uh, disturbing the to execute of other lines. It is not allowing to execute of rest of the lines after this line. Okay, so that whatever that abnormal situation will call it as a exception. Okay, so this exception must be handled. So if we are handling this exception, we are getting in this line we are getting of some exception. If we are handling this exception, Okay, this exception must be handled to maintain the normal flow of the program. If this line is properly handled, the exception, then this line also will execute. Then the last line also will execute. So how can we handle that exceptions? How to handle that exception? There are some keywords that are there to handle that exceptions. Okay, hence causing the abnormal termination. So now let's read it again. So the exception must be handled to maintain the normal flow of the program. If this exception is not handled properly, the rest of the program will not be executed. That's what is happening right now. So hence causing the abnormal abrupt termination or abnormal termination of the program. Okay. Therefore, you must handle the exception for smooth flow of the program. To execute that program smoothly without any exception, we must handle that exceptions. Okay, to handle runtime exception, one mechanism is one to handle such type of runtime exceptions. To handle that runtime exceptions, Java has provided one mechanism that is called as exception handling mechanism. Exception handling mechanism. Okay, exception handling mechanism. So what is the how to handle that exception, what is the hierarchy of that exceptions. Okay, now let's see. Throwable class, this is the normally object class is super class for every classes, right? So under that even throwable is also subclass of object class. Even throwable is also even throwable is also throwable is also a subclass of object class. Is also a if you are not writing anything, so it is also a subclass of object class. If you are not writing anything, obviously indirectly that also will be the subclass of object class. Okay, that also a object of subclass. Okay, let's 1 second. Yeah, now see in the 1 second. Yeah, Throwable is the Throwable class act as a root of Java exception hierarchy. So under that we have two classes. One is exception, another one is error. So main class for exception handling is Throwable. Under that one type is exception class, another one is error. And what is the difference between exception and error? That also we'll see. Okay, what is the difference between exception and error? Under exception, under exception let's increase of now let's see. So under exception, see, super class is object class, under that throwable class, under throwable exception one side and error is another class. Okay, now under exception again, under exception again, so there are multiple types is there. Again there are lot of exception class are available under exception class. There are hundreds of exceptions are there. Okay, now, out of again two types is there. One is runtime exception. Okay, one is runtime exception. Under that again lot of subclass exceptions are there under runtime exception. Okay, this is a parent runtime exception is the parent exception for all the exception, arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, array index out of bound exception. Like for all these exceptions, so runtime exception is the super class. For this super class is exception class. For this super class is throwable class. For this super class is object class. Like this, the flow is there. Okay. Now, under exception, runtime exception is one of the class. Okay. Under that, there are many exceptions. Okay. Now, apart from runtime exception, there are other exceptions also is available. IO exception, SQL exception, servlet exception. There are other exception many is there. Okay, for time being. So again we are going to discuss about runtime exceptions. Okay, again under exception there are two types is there: checked exception and unchecked exceptions. That also we'll discuss. Okay, soon. Now, so under error, there are multiple error classes are there: linkage error, assertion error, virtual memory error, stack overflow error, and out of memory error. These are error classes under error. So error is a super class. Under that, These are the sub error classes. Sub error classes of under error. Okay. Now, what is the difference between exception and error? Okay. Now, exceptions are mostly exceptions will come because of exception will come because of our program, because of our programming is not correct. If you are writing wrong way of code, wrong code, then exceptions will be coming, then exceptions will arise. Okay, those can be those can be recovered by using modifying the code. Okay, if you are modifying the code, then those error will not, sorry, those exceptions will not come again. Okay, so the exceptions will come because of code, because of our program. Okay, but errors, the errors will come because of system issues. It is not a problem with the program. It is of memory is not there. Okay, if in the system only 2 GB is there. Okay, if you are running the continuously program, after 2 GB is completed, the memory in your system, it will give the exception like out of memory error. Okay, out of memory error. It is not because of our program, it is because of system resources. Because of system resources, if it is not available, okay, then it will throw off errors. Now let's go and see that. Come down. Yeah. So exceptions, most of the times exceptions are caused. Okay, exceptions are caused by the program. Exceptions will come because of our program. Okay, these are recoverable. If you are rectifying that error in the code, then error, that exception will not come again. Okay, that exception will not come again. So most, next one is error. Next one is error. Most of the times error are not caused of by program, so the errors will not come because of our program. So those are some, these are due to the lack of system resources. If memory is not available due to some power issues, due to many issues, those errors will come. Okay, errors is because of system resources. Okay, because of some system resources, the errors may occur. Those are not recoverable, so that we can't recover from our program. We need to restart the system. Okay, compulsory. It will stop our application. Okay, compulsory, we need to restart it. So now the next one is exceptions. Next one is exceptions. So again, the exceptions are divided into, exceptions are up to now, exceptions and handles, exceptions and errors. Exceptions because of it will come because of our code. Okay, errors will come because of system resources, right? So again errors will come. Again exceptions, again exceptions will come, divided into two types. One is checked exceptions, other one is unchecked exceptions. Okay, so now we are going to discuss about checked exceptions. Okay, what is mean by checked exceptions, what is mean by unchecked exceptions? Okay, now checked exceptions means, checked exceptions means at the time of writing the code itself, at the time of writing the code. So is this error is coming at runtime or at the time of writing time? Is it giving any exception at the time of writing time, guys? So are you able to see any error now in the at the time of writing code? No error, right? Only this error is coming at the time of running. At the time of running, this error is coming. So that will call it as runtime exceptions. If any error is not coming at the time of compilation time, if any error is coming at the time of compilation time only, at the time of compilation only, then we will call it as, let's say, remove semicolon. Is it giving error or not? Any error in the program, guys? Program error is there, right? It is showing some error. So that means at the time of writing the code itself, it is any error is throwing, error is showing, then we'll call it as a checked exceptions. Then we'll call it as a checked exceptions. At the compiler, at the time of writing the code itself, compiler will check is code is everything is correct or not. If any error is identified by the compiler at writing the code itself, then those exceptions are called as checked exceptions. Those exceptions will be called as checked exceptions. Okay. Now, so if any exception is not identified by the compiler at compile time, then only it is coming at runtime. Then we'll call those exceptions as those exceptions as unchecked exceptions or runtime exceptions. Those exceptions we'll call it as unchecked exceptions or runtime exceptions. Okay. Now, is it clear what is the difference between first what is checked exceptions, what is unchecked exceptions? Guys, is it clear, guys? What is meant by checked exception? Checked exception means at the time of writing the code itself, if the compiler is catching any error, if any compiler is catching any exception, then we can say that as then we can say that as a compile time exception. Let's say class dot for name of some Oracle. Just assume some class I have written. See, I written the code, but this line is throwing exception. This line is giving some error. So it is saying unhandled exception type class not found exception. Okay. So what exactly this is saying? Compiler is identifying the while compiling this code. So what compiler will check at runtime? At runtime, whatever the class you mentioned inside this, if that class is not available, if that class is not available in the class path, okay, if the class is not available in the class path, it may throw an exception called class not found exception at runtime. So instead of handling that exception in the runtime, okay, instead of disturbing that program in runtime, so please handle this exception now itself by using a there are some keywords is there. Those are try, catch, finally, throws and throw. There are some keywords is there. Okay, handle that exception by using of let's surround with either throw this exception here in the method level, okay, or surround with try and catch. Automatically that line of code is moved into try part and catch part. In between this line is added. So this code I didn't add it, right? See, so just it is there. So if I am keeping my cursor there, it is showing two options: throw the exception whatever that is there in the method level, or surround with try and catch. Surround with, click on that, then that line is moved to try, and whatever that exception is throwing by this line, that is added in the catch block. Okay, that is added in the catch block. Okay, now we'll see soon. Now these are checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. Okay, now so exception handling in Java was implemented using five keywords. Exception handling, how to handle the exceptions in the Java is by using five keywords. We can handle that exceptions. Okay, those are try, catch, finally, throws, throws, throw and throws. So by using these five keywords, we can handle any exception. We can handle any exception in the Java. Okay. So we can handle of any exception. So now let's see. Yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah. Assert is that is for different purpose, guys. Assert is for verification of numbers. Assert is there that normally we'll use of in case of writing JU, JNet, even in case of Java also will use, but it is mostly will not use that one. The assert will not use it. Yes, mostly 99.99% will use of this keywords only. Okay, that is very rarely 0.0% will use it. Okay, mostly we'll use of these keywords only, 99%. Okay, now 1 second, guys. Yeah, now so now let's see of what is try block. What is try block? So when do we need to use of try block? When do we need to use of try block means let's say we are writing of we are writing now in this line only it is saying right now let's say int int e equal to 0, just keep it 0. Okay, now in line number here I'm writing of int g equal to a by e. Okay, a by e. So right now this is not giving off any error. Actually at runtime it will give some error, right? At runtime it will give off some error. One second, duplicate e parameter f, make it f. This already variable e is there, right? That is the reason. Okay, now label this. Okay. It is giving error, but I want to handle this exception. So what we can do is we can use of so whichever the statement that will throw an exception, whichever element, whichever the line that is going to throw an exception, what we need to write those statements try. Okay, open bracket and close that bracket. So there may be a chance of this line may throw some exception. So whatever the exception that is throwing, we need to write off catch. When you write catch block, catch block. So it may throw off what type of exception it is throwing, guys? This a by f means 10 by 0 is throwing off which exception? Arithmetic exception, correct or not? Right, it is throwing off arithmetic exception. Okay, handle that exception e. Now print that message. Okay, e dot get get message. So I don't want to stop my execution. So whatever the exception that is coming, print that error message and continue my execution. Don't stop my execution in between. Okay, now let's see. Is it executed or not, guys? Guys, it is not stopped, right? So if you want to see that message, now system dot out dot println of e dot get message. Okay, e dot get message. If you don't want, if you want to print stack trace, e dot print stack trace. Okay, even this also will give the information about the exception. So end of main method is completed and it is throwing off exception also, but it is not stopping my, it is not, it is saying the exception is raised and still it is continuing. Okay, if you want to see only the message error message, if you want to see only the error message, then get message, just to display that message and continue my program. Now let's see. So after that, this line is causing of some exception. Divide by 0 exception is caused and end of main method is also executed. So without this try and catch, so the program is not completing fully, right? Correct or not? So this is one of the way to to handle the exception. Try and catch is one way to handle the exceptions. Okay. Now so I don't want to handle this exception. I don't want to write a try and catch my in my method. Let's say for example, I will do of this dividend. I'll write of one method divide. Divide of int a comma int a comma f a comma f I am passing. Okay, write of method. Okay, let's see, I'm writing one method. Okay, so inside this line I want to, inside this method I want to write my logic. Okay, so if my method don't want to write the, if my method, in my separate method, divide by method is there. Divide method is there with two parameters. Within this method, if you are not handling any exceptions, so within this method, if you are writing try and catch, no issues. Okay, here only it will handle that exception. No issues. Okay, if this method, if this divide method don't want to write the try and catch, if divide method don't want to write off handle this exception, then if a divide method don't know how to handle the exception, if a divide method don't know how to handle the exceptions, then in that case, what we can do, so we will throw this exception in the method level. So I'm not able to do how to handle this exception within the method, so please handle whoever calling this method wherever it is. Okay, let's say THROWS throws. This method, whatever the exceptions that is throwing inside this method, I am throwing out of this method. I'm throwing out of this method, arithmetic exception out of this method. So from where we are calling this method? Divide method, guys. Where we are calling this divide method? Inside main method. Correct or not? Inside main method, we are calling of this method, right? This method we are calling, divide method we are calling inside main method. So at that time, we need to write try and catch here. Need to write try and catch in the calling place. In the caller place, we have to handle that exception. Okay. E dot. Let's say if we are not writing here also, just I am throwing here arithmetic exception and it is calling here. In this case also, it will stop in between. In this case, it is stopping in between. This line is throwing exception. This line is calling this method. This method is throwing some arithmetic exception. You people are not handled within this method, right? So in that case also, the caller is throwing some exception. This method is internally calling this method. Okay, this method internally calling throwing this exception. So this exception, if you are not handling here by using try and catch, by using try and catch, then it will throw an, it will abnormal termination will happen. Okay. Now system dot out dot println of e dot get message. Now this time it will go as a normal way. Okay, so what this throws, what this throws will is, so throws will throw the exception to the caller place. So this divide method wherever you are calling, so in the calling place we need to handle that exception by using try and catch, by using try and catch. Let's go and read the document. So these are the keywords that will be used for handling exceptions. Okay, now let's first try. By using try keyword, by using try keyword, we can create a block. We can create a block, right? The try with the block of statements, we can write any number of lines of code. We can write it. Okay, we can get and we can write all the statement which needs to be monitored for exception in this block. Normally, what lines of code that we will write inside this statement, inside try block means, if you may have some doubt, so this error, this lines of code, let's say out of my 50 lines of code, 4 to 5 lines of code may throw an exception, may throw an exception. So this line may throw an exception. If you have any doubt, then those type of statements we need to keep inside try block. Okay, those type of statements we need to keep inside, let's say remove this, remove this also, right off. So if the statement, you know that because of the statement, there may be some exception will come, there may be a chance of coming exception in the those statements. So if you have any doubt, it's out of 50 statement, there are some 10 statements may chance of throwing some exception in the code. Those lines will keep in between try catch only, sorry, in between try only. Okay, if this exception may cause of, if this exception is coming, that exception will be catched by using this catch block. Okay, So all those whatever 5 lines, 5 statement is throwing 5 types of exceptions. Okay, one is throwing off not any mathematics one. Catch block will catch the exception thrown by try block statement. Whatever the statement that is throwing here, those can be catched inside a catch block. Okay. Now, next we'll go for some throw. Next we'll go for throws. Sorry, finally we'll see after some time. Okay. First we'll see throw. Okay. Throw means when do we need of throw? Okay. So if I want to throw some exception, if I want to throw some exception intentionally, okay? If I want to throw off my exception in this line, it is not throwing off any exception, okay? If you want to throw off any exception intentionally, okay? If you want to throw, I don't want to continue this program and this line. So here you want to throw off some exception. Then th throw new any runtime exception. Runtime exception of runtime exception. Okay. Then in this case, it is 1 second. We can write off throw. Oh yeah, yeah. See, so what I am doing here? So throw new runtime exception. If I am throwing any exception, so at any cost, this line will never execute. At any cost, always this line will execute. Always this line will execute. So this time will get off unreachable code. Unreachable code. At any point of time, this line of code will never be executed. So the compiler is catched that one. Okay. So keep this one. Now, if you want to throw off some exception intentionally, I'm throwing some exception. Okay. Now let's run it. See, it is throwing off a runtime exception at line number 25. So, if you want to throw off any exception intentionally, then in that case, we can use of a throw keyword. We can use of a throw keyword. We'll see lot of example, guys. No worry. This just for example of I'm giving try, catch, throw, throws. Finally, I'm giving some information. Later, we'll see some more examples also. Okay. See, by using throw keyword, we can throw an exception. We can throw an exception intentionally. That means we can create an abnormal situation. We can create our own abnormal situation. Okay. So let's say, for example, so what I am doing here, if you want to execute of this statement, if a equal to 10, then only throw this exception. Here a is 10 is there, right? In this case, it will, if a is 11, a is 1, but currently a is 10, right? In this case, this will not throw an exception, right? If a is 10, then it may have throw the exception. There may be in the program while writing the code. So it depends on the condition you want to throw some exception intentionally. Okay, intentionally. Then in that case, we can use of throw keyword. We can use of throw keyword to throw that exception intentionally or to create an abnormal situation. Okay, intentionally. Then we can use of throw keyword. Okay. Next, next one is throws. Next one is throws keyword. Okay, throws keyword is like okay, throws keyword. Before I told you one example of divide by zero, right? This code we are writing out of that. Okay, let's say this one. I'm writing of one method divide a comma f. I'm writing, I'm generating code, guys. Just to keep the cursor there and it will create a method divide int comma int. Just click on that, it will generate the code. Okay, and you can write your own logic inside that. So if I'm doing of a by f, a by f, if I'm doing this, then automatically enter result. If I'm doing a by f means 10 by 0 means obviously it will go and it will give some exception. So what type of exception it is giving? It is giving some runtime exception, is it is going to arithmetic exception it is giving. So within this method, actually the method is throwing the exception. So within this method, if you are writing try and catch, then fine. Okay. If within the method, if you don't know how to handle that exception, then that exception, whatever that is coming here, whatever that is the exception coming here, you want to throw the that exception out of this method, out of this method. Okay, then in that case, in the method level, in the method level, you can throw an exception arithmetic exception, then in that case, in this line it will not give exception. Now control X. Now let's see, it will show off which line is throwing exception. Which line is throwing exception? Line number 26 is throwing exception. Okay. Now, and from where we are calling that method? Line number 17 we are calling that method. Line number 17 we are calling of divide method. In line number 26 that is throwing off exception. System.out.println a value. Okay. And the system.out.println of f value. Okay. Now let's see. A value is 10, f value is 0. So line number 27 it is causing of error. Okay, from where we are calling, that is of exception in the line number in this method divide method. See, it is showing of divide method 27. Okay, if I don't want to handle this exception here, suppose arithmetic exception, I'm throwing this exception out of this method, then compulsory we need to handle that exception in the caller place. I don't know how to handle this exception in this method. Okay, please handle this method in the caller place where we are calling line number 17 we are calling compulsory that in that case we need to write this statement in try and catch. We need to write this statement in try and catch. Not out that println enough. E dot get message. Okay. E dot get message. Now let's see. Now it is done. It is throwing up some exception that we are catching in line number 20 in this catch block. Okay. In this catch block we are catching it. Okay. So the throws keyword is used. Throws keyword is used to throw an exception out of method. To throw an exception out of method. Who will handle that exception? The caller, whoever is going to call that method, is responsible. Caller is responsible to handle that exception. Okay. Now let's see throws. Okay, by using throws keyword we can throw an exception out of the method. Okay, within the method I don't know how to handle that exception, so that is the reason I'm throwing that exception out of the method. Then who is going to responsible that? So throws will throw an exception to the caller. So whoever is going to call that method which is throwing an exception, the caller is responsible to the calling place is in the calling place we need to handle that exception, or caller is responsible to handle that exception. Okay. Now a method throws exception back to the caller if does not know, if does not know how to handle it. That's what I told you. Okay, this method is throwing some exception, I don't know how to handle it, I'm throwing that exception that I'm handling in the caller place. In the main method I'm calling line number 18, I'm calling that line I'm keeping inside try black. If that method is that caller place is throwing exception, then that whatever the exception is that is throwing the catch block will catch it. Okay, that's what the throws class. That's what the throws class. Next, next is finally. Next is finally. So what is the use of finally block? Okay, finally block will be executed always, irrespective of exception is coming or not, whether the exception raised exception is handled or not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So we are, let's say, if here null pointer, actually it is giving a arithmetic exception, right? And after this normally if I am executing this, it is giving some exception. After this line is not executing, right? This line is not executing. If I am keeping this statement in, if I am keeping this statement in finally block. Let's try this. It must be followed by catch. Okay, it must be followed by catch. Now, if I'm writing the finally block, now this statement will execute. Now, let's see, even the exception is coming also. Even exception coming also, end of the method is executed. If I'm writing that statement in finally block, so if this method is, this block is not there, and if this line is added in the out of this method, okay, out of this finally black, it will never execute, it will not execute, right? If I'm writing the statement inside finally block, inside finally block, then it will be always executed. The reason is finally block will execute irrespective of the try block is executed or not. Always this finally block statements will execute. Always this finally block, whatever the statement that we are writing inside finally block will be executed always. Why that will be? That will see the reasons also soon. Okay, in today's or tomorrow's class also. Now let's finally block will be executed after completion of try and catch block. After completion of try and catch, the final block will execute. So when it will execute, whether this is throwing some exception, okay, and this catch block is not handling, if it is catching the exception also, it will handle the, it will throw, it will execute the final block, even though it is not handling that catch block also, okay, the final block will execute. Okay, so which type of statements will keep inside the finally block means, let's say for example, you are trying to get some connection from the database. Okay, you are trying to get the connection from database, and you are getting some data from database, and you are reading the data. After reading the data, compulsory we need to close the database connection. Otherwise, if someone is trying for the same connection, we may get off at some point of time. Connections if all are completed means we'll get off some exception. Okay, so to avoid that, normally at the end of our work completion, once you try to get the data from database, you need to return that connection back to the connection pool. Okay, then only someone can use that connection. Okay, that cleanup activities can be cleanup activities code can be added inside finally block. Okay, those we'll see some practical examples in tomorrow's class. Okay, for time being, read that content and for understand for some point, at least 30 to 40 point just to understood. Rest of the things you will understood tomorrow's class. Finally block will be executed after completion of try and catch block, and without this try catch, only finally black we can't keep it, that is not possible. This is followed by try catch finally, or at least try finally, at least try finally. So alone we can't keep as finally, or alone try we can't keep. Okay, at least finally should be followed by either try, or try should be followed by catch or finally. It is optional. Okay, if finally is not there, at least catch block is required for catching the exceptions. Okay, and if catch is not there, at least finally block also required for try. Okay, and only try block we can't keep, and only finally block we can't keep, only catch block also we can't keep. Okay, that is also no use. Okay, so compulsory for writing some try block means, so there is at least either catch block or finally block is required. If both is there, also fine. Catch and finally is also there, also no issues. It is more good. Okay, this is a try block. Sorry, finally block. So let's read some more points. So this block will be executed. Which block? Finally block. This block will be executed irrespective of whether the try block throws some exception or not. So normally this method is throwing some exception, arithmetic exception, right? So if this is throwing some exception, that exception we are not handling in catch block. We are handling of null pointer exception, not arithmetic exception. So whether the thrown exception is handled or not, it doesn't matter. Always that block will be executed. Try block should be follow. Finally, block will be executed irrespective of whether the try block is executed or not, whether if any exception is thrown, that exception is handled in the catch block or not. So that doesn't matter. Always finally block will execute. Okay. And next, next is some notes. Try block should be followed by. Try block should be followed by at least one catch or finally block. So at least either catch block or finally block. At least one is compulsory should be there. Okay. And a single try block can contain of more than one catch block. Okay. Let's say this is one catch block. We can write off one more catch block. Okay, we can write off one more catch block. Arithmetic exception, this is for one. So this is for exception. Okay, we can write off any number of exception catch blocks. So this line, this try block may throw off any exception. Okay, so we can write off any number of catch blocks. It doesn't give any error. Okay, and all exceptions also we can write in single catch block also. That we'll see in tomorrow's class. Okay, is it clear, guys? So what is exception, how to handle the exceptions? Okay, we'll see more example. What are the keywords that will be used for handling the exceptions? What is checked exception, what is unchecked exception, what is exception, what is error? Okay, is it clear, guys, up to now? Please revise this, and then we'll see more examples more detailedly tomorrow's class. All checked exception, unchecked exceptions with examples we'll see more in tomorrow's class onwards, in tomorrow's class. Okay, guys, is it fine? Guys, clear? Any doubt you can ask me, or so please revise it and then come for tomorrow's class. Okay, it is whatever that we have discussed today purely dependent again tomorrow. Whatever that we have discussed today, if you are not understood today, if you are not revising, if you are coming tomorrow, then there is no, you can't understood that. Okay, please revise and then come for tomorrow's class. Okay, thank you, guys. We'll meet tomorrow again. Yeah.